Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are continuing the NFL draft series, super late into this until May now. The draft was late April, but there's no NFL games at all till the very end of August. No, I guess the start of August for preseason, so still have time to get these done. Today we are tackling the AFC South, which means our next video will be the NFC South. This is all in just alphabetical order. We break down each team, grade them individually, and we kind of rank each team compared to their divisional opponents. So the first team alphabetically is the Houston Texans. Who had a rough offseason outside of the draft, purely just off some of the very questionable moves they've made, dumping DeAndre Hopkins because he cost too much, but then trading for an injury-prone, expensive Brandon Cooks. Interesting stuff. I don't think Bill O'Brien should be their head coach or their GM. Definitely not their GM. Either way, he still is, so we'll go through what they did. Their first pick wasn't until the 40th overall in the draft in the second round, and they went Ross Blacklock, defensive lineman out of TCU. CBS Sports gave it an A-. By the way, you'll see me look off. This is the same as all the other videos. I have CBS Sports draft tracker up so I can see every pick and what they think about it, and I give you what I thought about it as well. So they gave it an A-. They said he's a very good defensive tackle. It does make sense because they needed depth there, and the name is escaping me. Give me a second. DJ Reader went to the Bengals in free agency, which meant there was an opening in the defensive line for the Houston Texans. And Ross Blacklock, a kid who's already used to that Texas weather, although they play in a dome, so it doesn't matter. But from the area, played in the area, now gets to stay in Texas with Houston. They gave it an A-. Yeah, sure. A-, B, maybe. Good pick, especially for the 40th overall in a position that they did need since they let DJ Reader walk. Their next pick, third round, 90th overall, Jonathan Grinyard, edge player out of Florida. He transferred to Florida from Louisville, I believe, and got drafted in the third round, so good for him. Either way, CBS Sports gave this an A. They said he has flashes of potential, and he's just a little inconsistent. But Houston they need more help on the edge. I mean, obviously Connie left, 2 years ago by now? And so any depth you can get, or even if he starts just the more guys he can get on that defensive front, the better for this Houston Texans defense. It's a pretty good pick with what they're working with. You would think, trading away DeAndre Hopkins and Clowney and all these guys throughout this amount of time, they'd walk away with at least a first-round pick at some point. They don't. But I will say they made the most of the picks they had, so I got to give them some credit, even though that DeAndre Hopkins trade alone kind of hurts their offseason. Their next pick, okay, they gave that an A. Sure, I'll give it an A too. He has potential, he really does, and he can be a good depth piece at the very least. And then in the fourth round, pick 126 overall, they went Charlie Heck, offensive lineman out of UNC. He's a tackle, apparently. They said he's better at pass protection and run blocking, and he needs to add weight and strength. At 311, I'm surprised, but I guess he needs even more. But they said he can be an explosive athlete, and it's a good depth option at tackle. I guess you want to get a decent backup in there, considering you hope you never have to use him, considering you paid Laramie Tunsil a crap ton of money to stay in Houston to be your starting tackle of the future. They gave it a C-. I would say a C flat. Yeah, it wasn't their biggest need, but it's decent depth in a position that always helps to have depth in. And when you're working with these kind of later picks, it's not too bad of a move. Their next pick, fourth round, 141 overall, they went John Reed, corner out of Penn State. They said he's a gritty, twitchy outside corner who apparently will likely move inside because he's only 5'10", 187. Drives off the football in order to coach some effective press man. Apparently he feels a need for Houston. I think they do need help at corner, so the more bodies you get, the better. I won't lie, I didn't know John Reed really at all. I'm familiar with all the other prospects they drafted, but John Reed I'm actually kind of just hearing about just now. So Penn State fans will maybe know a bit about him and what he can really do. But CBS Sports likes to pick with an A. I'll give it a B. Fourth round, it's a late pick. They're second to last, actually. They did not have a lot of draft capital, which just proves how ridiculous the Texans are with their weird moves they've done. Either way, decent pick in a position they need. Just get more bodies in the cornerback room and see what sticks. It's kind of what they need. They're a real young unit there. A lot of guys need to kind of break out and really get developed to get this cornerback room to a level it should be. And their last pick in the fifth round, 171 overall, they went Isaiah Coulter, wide receiver out of Rhode Island. Apparently he's got the size, speed, intangibles with flashes of ability down the field. The routes are good. Doesn't consistently create separation. He was an FCS product coming out of Rhode Island, so we'll have to see how he fares against this level of competition, because he didn't even deal with Power 5 competition much, let alone NFL levels. But he has potential in the 5th round, late in the 5th round. That's a good pick. They gave it a B. I'd agree. Maybe an A. I do find it a little interesting they didn't address receiver at all early in this draft, considering who walked out the door. But I guess they're really confident with their unit of Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Isaiah Coulter, and I don't know, I can't even think of the other bodies that are on that team. But 2 of them, Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, I should know, he played for my team, are injury prone, and so Coulter might seal the field more than we think. I think addressing it this late wasn't their smartest move, but at least they got one, and it's a pretty decent one for the value, so I'd agree with their B there. Overall, the Texans definitely aren't going to have the best draft in their division, purely, even if they drafted perfect, but just based off the lack of capital. No first rounder, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it 6 picks total? Yeah, 6 draft picks total in the whole draft. Interesting to say the least. Not horrible, though. They actually did pretty well. No crazy reaches, no positions where it's why on earth you don't need any of that. So not too bad. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts, who have been very good at drafting recently with their GM. They always seem to trade away their first-round pick, which is an interesting kind of thing. This time they traded it for... Is it Armstead? I think it... One sec. Sorry, not Armstead. DeForest Buckner. So they added a Pro Bowl level, Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle using their first-round pick. So that's a great deal right there. I won't factor it into this, but it's notable. Just like how Pittsburgh traded their first for an all-pro safety, the Colts traded their first for a very talented young defensive tackle. So I think that worked out for both of those teams. If you ask me, you get a proven commodity, and they both traded for younger guys, so that helps a lot. Very good uses of the first-round picks, if you ask me. Same with the Colts here. And so their first pick wasn't until 34th overall, which is actually a pretty high second, so that wasn't too bad for them. And they went Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver out of USC. Pittman, I've seen him. He was kind of rising up draft boards toward the end of it. A lot of people saying he was pretty underrated, but going early in the second is a pretty good spot for him, I think. He has a lot of potential. I think it makes sense that the Colts are going wide receiver. They need more weapons. They just paid Phillip Rivers $25 million. Then to hope he's not washed, and if you really want to do it, you got to get more weapons there. They've invested, I think they did a second-round pick last year, too, on Paris Campbell, but I think he had some injury issues. So him coming in and being able to stay on the field is a very good speed option, is a good choice for the Colts to work with. Adding 2 very young kids of Pittman and Campbell to go along with the aging veteran T.Y. Hilton is a pretty solid receiving room with a lot of potential. Hilton, Pittman, and why did I already forget his name? Yeah, you know what, I said it already. That's ridiculous that I forgot it already. Either way, that's a decent young receiver. 2 of them are young, and they can be receivers of the future for whoever becomes quarterback after Rivers, and can grow with Rivers now. Having a veteran QB can really help the growth and development of young wide receivers. Very good pick, if you ask me. Then at pick 41 overall, they double-dipped on the offense, going Jonathan Taylor, running back out of USC. CBS Sports said he was the best running back in the class and compared his athleticism to that of Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley. His only problem is he had a very high fumble rate in college. He fumbled a lot, more than he probably should have. He also was a bell cow at Wisconsin, which means there's already a lot of wear and tear on him, a lot of miles, which these running backs in the NFL, a lot of them aren't getting good second contracts because of all the miles. And the fact he's already kind of worn and torn from his college career isn't a great sign for his entire career. Hopefully he can succeed. They gave it an A-. I gotta go B, not because his talent. He is very talented, but like I said, the fumbling issues and the fact that running back wasn't a need for this team. This is the first time today so far they drafted a position that didn't make sense. I don't think most people would have considered the Colts taking coming in the draft night when they have Marlon Mack and Naheem Hines. I'm not fully aware of their contract situations, but I have a feeling at least one of them will not return to the Colts whenever their contract is up if they win on Jonathan Taylor. So maybe they're viewing this as an upgrade over Hines or a future Mac replacement because they don't want to pay Mac, like I said about these people not getting second contracts. So maybe if that's their plan, okay. It's still not a bad pick, like I said. That's why it's a B. But to me, it's not a big position of need to take with your second pick in the entire draft, especially when you don't have a first rounder to work with. Not bad, though, and he should have a pretty good career, if you ask me. In the third round, pick 85 overall, they went Julian Blackmon, safety out of Utah. He used to play corner and turned safety in college. They said his burst is there, too. Love his ball skills, quality tackler. And apparently, it looks like he's going to play alongside Malik Hooker at safety. I don't know who the Colts' other safety was, so I can't tell you if this is an upgrade or not or what really happened there. But he is a very solid option, especially 85th overall. It's a good pick. CBS Sports give it an A. I'd agree. Utah had a very, very solid, if not sometimes underrated defense last year, and Julian Blackmon was a decent part of that. And he should do very well in the next level. Obviously, he's a third rounder, so the expectations won't be as high. He can have some time to develop. But I think the Colts have done pretty decent at developing talent recently, especially under this management. And so I think he has a lot of potential to succeed here in Indianapolis. Fourth round, pick 122 overall. The Colts went Jacob Eason, quarterback out of Washington. CBS Sports views this as the perfect landing spot for the ultra-talented but raw Eason, who have one of the strongest arms in the NFL instantly. Apparently he crumbles under pressure and isn't super athletic. But he will have plenty of time to develop here if this is who they view as the future option. Plus, the Colts have a very excellent offensive line now after Andrew Luck had to get beat up for years, which led him to retire early. But Eason has potential. I mean, for a fourth-round pick, Colts fans probably don't get your hopes up and expect him to be the future, kind of like how us Steelers fans might have thought that about Mason Rudolph. The reality is these are day 3 picks, and Rudolph was technically day 2, but late day 2. This is a day 3 pick for a reason. He fell to the fourth round. He was passed over by every team basically at least 3 times, and it's for a reason. He's not going to come out the gate swinging, but you have Phillip Rivers in place to stay there and play for at least a year, if not probably 2 if we're being optimistic. I don't think he's going to be longer than 2 years, Colts fans. I'm guessing you probably agree. I don't know. Let me know if you think Rivers has a lot left in the tank, because I really don't think he does. But Eason has potential, and so for a fourth-round pick, I guess it's not horrible. It's maybe not where I would have gone, but I guess if he was still on the board, it makes sense. Take a shot. Worst case, he's your backup of the future, because I have a feeling they don't want to keep this happens to me every time now. 1 second. They don't want to keep Jacoby Brissett on the team. They haven't shown a lot of faith in him, obviously, and replacing him with an old Phillip Rivers probably isn't give him a lot of confidence, want him to keep him in Indy, and his contract is a little higher than what most backups should probably make, so there's a chance that Jacoby Brissett will be off this team. And so Eason is a good backup of the future. Yeah, and I looked up the Colts safeties too. It looks like Kari Willis was their starter, and so he will have competition from Julian Blackmon for that starting spot. Not a bad value at all for that pick. I agree with that. A. Eason, I'll probably go B. Like I said, backup quarterback, but if you can land one, that's a pretty decent backup quarterback. A lot of potential there. Hopefully he can learn and excel under Phillip Rivers in this Colts offense. Their next pick, 5th round, 149 overall. They went with the homegrown, the kid who played for an Indiana school, Danny Pinter, offensive lineman out of Ball State. Apparently he's a supreme athlete who played tackle in college, but it looks like he will play guard at the next level. Good balance, and just needs to get a little stronger. And the Colts continue to strengthen their lead offensive line. This is a good depth pick for an offensive line that's relatively healthy, but you can never go wrong with adding very talented potential players on your offensive line. Potential means a lot in the offensive line, especially if a good coach who can develop these players, and Danny Pinter fits that mold perfectly. Smaller schools, so it'll be interesting to see how he steps up, but he has the physical traits and just needs to keep adding size and strength, which he will be able to do with these NFL off seasons and training camps and workout regimens while developing behind the already stellar Colts offensive line. They give it an A-. I agree with that. That is a very good pick, if you ask me. And it's not just because I'm a Hoosier. There's no bias to Indiana guys. Ball State, good school though. Not great at football, but Pinter's got talent, and it should show at the next level eventually. At the very worst, he'll probably be a very good interior depth player. In the 6th round, they have a lot of 6th-round picks, so I might go a little faster through these. I did not realize they had 4 6th-round picks to end their draft. I'm going to read them all out at once and then break them down individually real quick. They went Robert Windsor, defensive lineman out of Penn State at 193 overall. At 211 overall, they went Isaiah Rodgers, cornerback out of Massachusetts, I believe. UMass, I think he went to. In the 6th round, again, the very next pick, 212. Oh, they had back-to-back-to-back. Their last 3 picks were 211, 212, and 213. Then they went Desmond Patman, wide receiver out of Washington State. And their last pick of the draft was Jordan Glasgow, linebacker out of Michigan. All right, so I'll give you for all of them real quick. Robert Lindsor, they got a C for that pick. They said, good, not great burst. He lacks power and pass rush moves. But they said they needed more depth at that position, and I guess it makes sense. He's a good, hopefully he can develop to be decent depth. These are 6th-round picks, like I said, so it's not a lot going with these guys, but you pick positions that make sense and you kind of need them. They give it a C. I'll go, yeah, sure, C, B- maybe. Good pick, but they kind of needed it. Now, for Isaiah Rodgers, a corner, they gave it a D+. It's a tiny, speed-based slot corner who'll make a large jump in competition to the NFL. And it wasn't overly dominant at the small school level, but the feet, apparently he's got quick feet and the flashes at ball skills are there. I mean, it's a depth piece. Developmental prospect in the 6th round, it makes sense. Corner isn't their strongest, might be their weakest unit on the defense, so throwing a corner body in there is pretty good. If he didn't dominate at his level is a little concerning, but I'll give it a C. I mean, like I said, he's a depth piece and might be able to develop as something at the very least. The very worst, you took a flyer on a position of need late in the draft, which is kind of what you should do. And then in the 6th round again, obviously the very next pick, they went Desmond Patman, wide receiver out of Washington State. This is a very tall prospect, which is kind of something, like I said, you would look for, those athletic, physical traits when you're late in this draft. At 6'4", 225, tall, built burner who can thrive on the vertical route tree. Apparently he's not great at like turning and cutting in routes, but he can box out and is... Oh, apparently he's primed to be better in the pros than he was at college. So one of these athletic developmental prospects, very good pick. They give it a B, I'd agree, maybe even a B+. Get a tall burner. That's just, every team could use one of those streaky guys who can just run flat out and beat someone. That they can prove to be useful, especially in the 6th round. Good developmental prospect. You want to look for that height, weight, speed, and he definitely has a good pick for the Colts there. Their last pick was Jordan Glasgow, Wyatt, linebacker out of Michigan. He's apparently a high-energy linebacker who will get the football against the run more than you expect, given his athleticism. Active blitzer, not great in coverage, so it's another depth piece to help with the run defense. They give it a D+. I'll go at least a C. I think they are pretty solid at linebacker, but it's a depth piece. It makes sense. It's not the worst. The Colts have been drafting pretty well for a while now, and I think nothing's changed with this draft. No first-round pick, and they still got a lot of value. Some question marks, mainly the fact that they went running back. Not only that early, but at all, when they already had a pretty solid running back room, if you ask me, but it's not like Taylor doesn't have talent. CBS Sports gave their best pick, they had 2 regular A's in Jacob Eason and Julian Blackmon, and they graded their worst pick as 2 D+ with Isaiah Rodgers and Jordan Glasgow, but most of these picks were way above, were all A's and B's. They had a very solid draft, if you ask me. By the way, sorry about, I'm itching my nose a lot. I got sunburnt, and I don't know why. It's making it extra itchy. I don't go outside it often, if you can't tell by how ghostly white I am half the time. All right, so then the next team, overall very solid draft from the Colts. They're currently number 1 in this slot with Texans at 2 as they go through into the next one. It's very likely the Texans will end up 4th, but I think we saw that coming to begin with. The next team is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a lot of picks this draft, including 2 first-rounders. Let's see how they did. Oh my gosh, sorry. All right, C.J. Anderson was their first pick, 9th overall, corner out of Florida. They said they love him, that they can cover. They talked to lead him through that. He was better. And apparently there's a decent amount of people actually had Henderson ranked above Okudah. I think it was up to different opinions. I think, to me, Okudah is a better prospect. But Henderson, Florida and Ohio State both know how to make defensive backs. Florida's obviously got Henderson in this case. Some people think he purposely limited himself his last college year so he'd be, not risk injury and be fully healthy, ready to go for the NFL. If that's the case, I don't love that kind of attitude, but hey, you're a top 10 pick. It worked out for you. Obviously, this is a great pick for the Jaguars, losing your top 2 corners due to money reasons and kind of the culture in that locker room. It needs changed, if you ask me. They really should have got rid of their head coach too, but that's a different story. But they took a good step with this draft, going C.J. Henderson, perfectly good young developmental corner who will definitely start right away. He'll probably be the number 1 corner out the gate, if you ask me. I'll give this pick an A. Has the height too at 6'1". It's a great height for a corner nowadays, and I think he can excel in this defense, and it makes sense. Then their next pick, 20th overall, still in the first round, they went defense again, going K'Lavon Chaisson, edge rusher out of LSU. This pick makes sense. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. They lost some guys, including Calais Campbell, off that defensive line. And the fact is, Yannick Ngakoue wants out, and he probably will be out at some point. Who knows how long they're going to drag it on for. He will end up on another team, if not this year, definitely next year. So why not get a young kid who can fill in and replace him, and that is K'Lavon Chaisson. He might not be as talented, but he definitely has the potential to be there. They said this guy, this is a guy that has to stay on the field. When he was on the field, he was productive. So he had a little bit of injury issues, but if he can stay healthy, he will excel. Very good at the pass rush. He might want to add a little bit of weight. They said they're curious to see how he'll hold up against a run at only 254 pounds, which is, heavy for most people, but NFL defensive front guys maybe not as much. But a lot of potential there. Definitely a first-round value pick. It made sense, fit perfectly. Good choice for them. B+, I'd agree. Their next pick, 42nd overall. In the second round, they went Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver out of Colorado. They said he has ridiculous yard after catch. I think he's coming off an injury, which isn't great, so another guy with injury concerns. But apparently Jacksonville went best player available at that pick, according to CBS Sports. Wide receiver isn't their biggest need, but they can definitely improve there. It's not like they have the best wide receiver core in the world. They have a pretty balanced young wide receiver core. I'm a Steelers fan, so I can kind of compare it to Steelers. You know, you got young kids with a lot of potential. DJ Shark is like their Juju, kind of, and you know what I mean? So they keep getting younger there, which is important. I think they have some older guys. I think like Marquise Lee's gone, right? So they're just getting younger at the position and improving and giving some weapons for Gardner Minshew to work with. And Laviska, if he can stay healthy, is a very good pick. He has the height and weight at 6'1", 227 too. Solid pickup for me. If they went A-, I'd agree. That's an A, maybe a B if you want to get pessimistic about the injury concerns. And in the third round, pick 73 overall, they went Devon Hamilton, defensive lineman out of Ohio State. So they went Devon Hamilton, defensive lineman out of Ohio State. Plays D tackle, is kind of a nose tackle. So what I got from this is that they needed the depth there, they needed that pick, but they might have went a bit early with the third round on it. But I'm gonna go to at least a C. CBS Sports was a bit more negative on it with a D+, but it's a position in need. Your best defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman, Calais Campbell's gone to the Baltimore Ravens. You only gave up a 5th round pick. The Ravens only had to give up a 5th round pick, which is a Steelers fan was infuriating to see. But hey, Hamilton, decent young prospect, could develop into something decent for that Jaguars defensive front that they're trying to rebuild. And next up, 4th round, 116 overall. They have a lot of 4th round picks. So how many do they have? Okay, they got 3 4th round picks, 2 5ths, 2 6th, and 7th. So they had a lot of draft capital on the last day of the draft at day 3. So their first one was Ben Bartch, offensive lineman out of St. John's, I believe, a D3 school. This is the first D3 prospect drafted in a long time. So obviously it's a huge leap in competition, but they're saying he has a length. He's light feet, very good balance, and is technically sound. And so he could actually, their scouts are confident that he could play in the NFL as a tackle. And so the Jags needed offensive line help. He was available. It makes sense. That's an A for me. I mean, their line is definitely one of their weaker spots on an already not so stellar offense. Getting more bodies in there, especially ones with high potential, just makes sense. Worst case, he doesn't start right away, or he can become a very solid career backup. But the best case scenario is it becomes your future starting left tackle for years to come. Very good move for the Jaguars, if you ask me. At pick 137 overall, they went Josiah Scott, cornerback out of Michigan State. Apparently, Chris Trespasso, who I probably said his name wrong, he graded these. Apparently, his favorite sleeper of a pick. Rapid footwork, stellar speed to recover. He's not real tall at 5'9", 185. But apparently, according to him, he's the best tackling corner in this class. He'll probably be a nickel or kind of a slot guy in the NFL level, but they really like this pick. They definitely need help on corner still, like I said. I mean, they lost their top 2-1, so anytime you draft a position of need and it's got potential, especially in the 4th round, that's a good pick. They give it an A. Yeah, sure, that's an A for me too. At least a B. I didn't know much about Josiah Scott, but it seems like he's pretty good and very good tackling, nickel kind of guy, and I think they could use help at any kind of corner in Jacksonville right now, and so you might as well throw more bodies in there, see who sticks. 4th round, pick 140 overall, they went Shaquille Quarterman, linebacker out of Miami. To me, this seemed like a bit of a reach. Everything I've seen about Shaq Quarterman was going late 6th, 7th, maybe even undrafted, but he went all the way in the 4th round. Apparently they had a linebacker to play next to Miles Jack, which was needed, but this guy's more of a run guy, not a lot of coverage, and apparently he's not real athletic. They gave it a C-. I'd probably go C. I think they signed a middle linebacker away from the Browns, I believe. Yeah, they paid big money to get Joe Schobert away from the Browns. I think he was a middle linebacker. They signed him to a 5-year, $53.75 million deal. So he will be starting alongside Miles Jack, which is, they may have overpaid, but that's a pretty good duo right there. So Quarterman's just a good depth piece, a very good run-stopping depth piece, which means he can play, maybe, give those guys breaks on obvious running down, stuff like that. Not a bad pick. I think he could have gotten picked a little later, which is why a C+ makes sense to me. That's what I'll probably give it. But he has potential, especially as a run defensive option. And then in the 5th round, pick 157 overall, they went Daniel Thomas, safety out of Auburn. Sorry, guys. Sinus infection paired with sunburn is driving my nose insane right now. But Daniel Thomas, safety out of Auburn. They said he's got good acceleration for the big, strong safety type. Decent speed. He's a bit slow in coverage, and he needs to get better at tackling. But he's a decent depth option. I don't think they're not real strong at safety. I know that much. They're very young there. But getting another body in there to see how he can compete with the other guys, bring some competition to that safety room, and at the very least can be decent depth in the future. Good pick. They went C-. I'll go C. So it's a position they could use help in, and it's late in the draft. It just makes sense to me. Pick 165 overall, also 5th round. They went Colin Johnson, wide receiver out of Texas. He's a tall, high-point specialist at 6'6", 222 pounds. That's a good. Everyone needs one of these guys. I said it with the Colts too. You want one of these big, fast guys. It makes sense. Apparently, he has problem separating, never improved through his college career. Will work well in the back shoulder game of Gardner Minshew. Still, just a tall, athletic option in the slate in the draft. I always say the height, speed, weight guys, you can take more flyers on once you're later in the draft in day 3, especially late 5th round is enough for me. I'll give it a B-. They went C+. I'd say B- because I liked the kid. He's a decent prospect. Hopefully he can continue to develop. They didn't sound like they thought he improved too much through his college career, but maybe the NFL training program can help him out. He has the height, though, which is important, especially when you're late in the draft. It doesn't hurt to take a flyer on a guy like that, especially the position that they're not loaded at wide receiver. And like I said, continue to get young and add some potential kids there. That makes sense to me. Good pick for the Jaguars. In the 6th round, pick 189, they went with a backup quarterback, Jake Lutton, quarterback out of Oregon State. Apparently he has the arm strength to play in the league, but he doesn't put the ball in precarious situation. Accuracy is good, not great. Apparently his pocket presence is his weakest issue, but he could develop to be a decent backup quarterback. He's a young kid too, so you have a chance to kind of mold him, develop him. He'll be on a very cheap deal for a backup. If Gardner Minshew is your future, this guy probably isn't going to compete with Minshew more than likely, even though Minshew was also a 6th-round pick. Maybe the Jags have figured out the secret formula to late-round quarterbacks, but he'll be a very solid backup in the NFL. I think he could develop into something decent. And so for the 6th round, late in the 6th round, pretty good if you ask me. They went B+. I'd agree. Oregon State slowly turning it around, actually, in college football. I respect that. I hope they do well. 6th round, their final pick in the 6th round, and they have one more pick after this, finally. They went Tyler Davis, tight end out of Georgia Tech, head-scratching pick. He was less productive in 2019 than he was in 2018. The athleticism and size are there. He's just raw as a receiver, but has some blocking prowess. This is a late developmental tight end who can block right away. I think that's actually better than they're giving it credit for. I'd go C-. Same with D. It's a bit harsh if you ask me. Tight end, they're not actually. I'm a little surprised they didn't go tight end at all. Maybe earlier, unless. No, Johnson doesn't have to wait to move the tight end, but they probably could have addressed it a bit earlier. But this was not a loaded tight end class. In fact, a lot of the tight ends went undrafted, including Hunter Bryant, Thaddeus Moss, Jared Pickney. A lot of guys went undrafted. I don't think any of them signed with the Jags, though, which is interesting. But decent blocking tight end late in the draft actually isn't that bad. It's a little interesting, to say the least. They probably could have went elsewhere, but it's not horrible. And their final pick was Chris Claybrooks, corner out of Memphis, twitchy, slender corner who needs to bulk up to deal with physical wide receivers in the NFL. Doesn't have a lot of production in college, but he has the height at 6 foot, and this is super late in the draft, 7th round. Why not take a flyer on a position in need again? 3 picks at corner, which really shows they're working on that corner. They lost their best 2, added 3 young kids. We'll see what happens. One will definitely be a legit option. The other 2 might develop into something. I don't hate the pick. That's a C for me. And so overall, CBS Sports' lowest graded pick for them was, I think it's the D for Tyler Davis in the 6th round. The highest graded pick was, in fact, multiple A's, including Ben Bartsch and Josiah Scott. So, not a bad draft for the Jaguars. I think it's interesting how I'd grade it because obviously they had more draft capital than the Colts did, including 2 first-round picks. I think the Colts still had a better draft, but the Jaguars definitely didn't draft bad this year. This is one of their better drafts they've had in a while. Hopefully these kids don't have a lot of character issues and can start to turn things around in Jacksonville. So, to me, they're second place right now. Colts first, Jags second, Texans third. And the final team in the AFC South is obviously the Tennessee Titans. And so in the first round, pick 29 overall, obviously the Titans made it far in the draft, so they didn't have a lot of high picks to work with this year. But 29th overall, they went Isaiah Wilson, offensive lineman out of Georgia. Apparently he's a massive right tackle on a team that needed one at 6'7", 350. Mahler in the run game, and apparently he's perfect for what the Titans do. Pete Prisco gave it a B+. I think that's a little high. I think they reached slightly, but it was a position of need with, was it Jack Conklin's gone, I think, to the Browns. So they needed a tackle. They drafted a tackle. Makes sense to me. I'm okay with a B. They went B+. I think a B, maybe a B-, just because it was a little bit of a reach, but it was a position of need, and it was late in the first, so it could have been worse. Not bad pick by them. In the second round, pick 61 overall, Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU. That's crazy to me. Yeah, they said the same thing. Unreal, he was still available. I'm actually I must have forgot this. Christian Fulton landing to Tennessee is a big move. That's a great pick. That's an A for me. LSU corners are always good. I don't think it matters. They've been drafted in the second round more recently now with Greedy Williams fell to the second for the Browns too. But this is clearly the reason why Logan Ryan is in free agency. The Titans were not bringing him back, and drafting Christian Fulton was all they needed to be okay. We're done with Logan Ryan. Good pick. Replaces Logan Ryan almost instantly is my guess. He routinely finds the football in zone or mirroring a man. Apparently he's got good instincts and great long speed. Checks all the boxes on the field. 6 foot is pretty decent size. I mean, obviously the taller the better, but 6 isn't horrible, especially when I feel like there's more and more 5'10", 5'11" corners entering the NFL each year. But this is smart. I mean, Tennessee just keeps adding on to the secondary. Obviously, this is more of a replacement thing, losing Logan Ryan. But I like the pick. That's an A for me. Maybe, that's an A+, actually. I really like that value. I kind of forgot he fell to them. 61 over. I'm really surprised he fell to 61. I don't know if there's something that the general public doesn't know. But athletic-wise and player-wise, very good pick for the Titans there. Third round, pick 93 overall. They went Darrington Evans, running back out of Appalachian State. He was a very good running back in the group of 5 level. Obviously, he didn't play a lot of Power 5 competition, but he did good. He should be very good depth behind Derrick Henry. The question is he supposed to be Derrick Henry's replacement? Henry is obviously playing on the franchise tag this upcoming season. So if Evans performs pretty well as the backup, he might be the future of the Tennessee Titans running back room, or we'll see if the Titans becomes one of the few teams that pays their running back, and we'll see if it becomes a mistake like it has for most of these other teams. But good pick. They've run that 2 kind of running back system for a while now, and I think this might be an upgrade over whoever was number 2 at the moment, but that's a good pick if you ask me. B-, sure, I'll go B- there. 5th round, okay, only 3 picks. This is quicker this time. They went Laurel Murchison, defensive lineman out of NC State, run-stopping specialist with some juice to penetrate the gap as a rusher. Good interior defensive lineman depth for Tennessee. Depth pick late in the 5th round. Good option. They gave it a C, and maybe I'll go B- just because they said it's good depth, and depth is really what you're looking for. Once you're in this 5th, 6th, 7th round, you're lucky if these kids manage to make your roster, if you're really being honest. And if they make it, they're way more than likely to be backups, third stringers, potentially even practice, especially the 7th round. You got a lot of practice squad candidates. In the 7th round, pick 224, their second to last pick, they went Cole McDonald, quarterback from Hawaii. He has a lot of talent and flashes potential a lot in college, has a great arm, and is a gunslinger. He's like a Brett Favre kind of gunslinger. He won't be as good as Brett Favre, let's make that perfectly clear. But you know what I mean, that style of play, kind of reckless with the ball, which is also his biggest downfall. He throws a lot of picks. Some of them are pretty bad. You know, Jameis Winston-esque in that kind of way. But late in the 7th round to be your future backup, more than likely, with Mariota gone. I really don't know who their current backup is, but this kid will at the very least be a decent third-stringer developmental kid to be a decent NFL career backup one day. And in the 7th round, not bad value. They went C+. I can agree with that. Not a lot. He definitely won't ever really excel. If he can figure out how to limit these kind of bad turnovers he does and some of his interesting decisions, he could be a very decent backup in the NFL. Not a horrible pick, especially in the 7th round. Like I said, it's like, take flyers and stuff you need. You need a backup, go ahead, try it. You know, what's the worst case happens? Your 7th round pick doesn't make your team. That happens to a lot of these teams. A lot of 7th round guys don't make it. You're basically just a hair above the UDFAs once you're in the 2nd round, especially, you know, at 224. Then their final pick, 243 overall, they went with Chris Jackson, corner from Marshall. Apparently he had 3 years of very good production at Marshall. Obviously that's a group of 5 schools, so not top competition he was playing. Apparently he's got decent length, needs to get a bit heavier at only 186, but he has some decent size at 6 foot, and apparently he's got good instincts. So that's kind of what you look for this late in the draft. Like I said, an athletic kind of developmental prospect, especially at a position that you could use. It's always great. The more corners, the better for any team. I don't think there's such thing as too many good corners, and the fact your Logan Ryan is gone, just adding another body, see how it works, is a good move. They went B+, I'd agree with that. So their top-rated pick from CBS Sports was Christian Fulton with an A. Completely agree. To me, that's an A+, actually. The lowest pick was a C. So they had a very high-graded pick, but not a lot of capital. Like I said, to me, their third place, because the AFC South surprisingly drafted very well. There's a lot of times where they have pretty interesting draft classes, but they all did pretty good this year. The Jags had a lot of C grades, but to me they're probably a little better than what CBS Sports is giving them for. Plus they had the most value with 2 first-round picks, a lot of higher round picks compared to some of these other teams. The Texans actually did good with what they had, but their limited draft capital makes them 4th place by default. So to me, it goes Colts, Jags, Titans, and Texans out of these drafts. The Colts, to me, that's an A draft working with what they got. They did very, very well. The Jags, that's a B. That's a solid B, maybe even a B+, especially because they hit in their first 2 picks, which I value. You got to value the higher picks more than anything. But the Titans still get a B+. I mean, a B. It might just be A-, B+, B, and then like a B- for the Texans. They all did well. I don't think any of these drafts are going to be horrible. It's just the value of where the picks were and how many picks you had played a big factor in grading these draft classes. Let me know what you think of all these draft classes. If you're a fan of any of these teams, let me know what you think. If there's someone you should have drafted instead, or if you thought you went after a position too early, too late, or completely ignored one for some reason, let me know. Like I said, I'm not a fan of any of these teams directly, so I don't have as much knowledge as like a Titan superfan would or something like that. So yeah, go ahead, feel free to comment below. Let me know what you think of how the AFC South did. The next video will be the NFC South. I'm looking forward to that. I think they also had a pretty solid draft class. Overall, a lot of teams drafted pretty well. I mean, the Packers were pretty rough. Raiders made some questionable calls, but we'll get to those. I already got to the Packers, but I think this was a pretty good draft for most teams this year. So let me know what you guys think. Comment below, let me know. Thank you for watching. This is KMA Preston signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video.